Hello, 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 and welcome back to the bonus episode of FYI. I hope you guys enjoyed the first part, and I hope my congestion isn't bothering you too much. When you sound like this, you're D-nasal. We say D-nasal, D-nasal. Bob, I'm going to talk to my Bob. Now, we're laughing, but what is speaking a language in the end? You're imitating. You're trying to recreate sounds. So I want you guys to do that all the time. Anytime you hear something that I say or somebody says and you're like, huh? That's a perfect opportunity to repeat it. All right, let's kick off the episode, the bonus episode, talking about some of the characters. And we'll kick off hearing from my friend Juan Solo once again. Because I asked him, what's your favorite character? Or who's your favorite character? Depende, ¿son humanos o no? Aquí valen ambos. Or which is your favorite character? Normalmente reservamos el which para una lista. Aunque yo sé que me estás diciendo, oye, ¿cuál de todos estos? Pero cuando es en general, we say, what's your favorite novel? Not so much, which is your favorite novel? That's the main difference between what and which in English. So let's hear from my friend Juan Solo, who, as I said, you can't find Star Wars fans as feverish as he is. So here he is telling us about his favorite character or how difficult it is for him to choose one. What do you have to say, Juan?
I think no Star Wars fan could name just one favorite character. It's impossible, at least for me. I love Han Solo, of course. He's the coolest guy in the galaxy. But what about Chewbacca, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, and his sinister laugh, Master Yoda and his awful grammar?
No, do or do not. There is no try.
And Jabba the Hutt. The guy is disgusting, but I love him. And Boba Fett. Boba Fett was at my wedding, and you witnessed that. Okay, I'm Juan Solo, so Boba Fett had to capture me and escort me to the altar. And yes, I went up to the altar with my mom, but Boba Fett was behind, pointed his blaster at me. So I didn't get cold feet. And it was amazing. And when my wife and I looked at the pictures, at the many hundreds and hundreds of photographs of the wedding, we realized there were more photographs with Boba Fett than with the couple, which was ridiculous. But everybody loved Boba Fett. Well, Star Wars is a phenomenon. Everybody loves it. And, when someone says, I've never seen a single film, I don't believe you.
Excellent expression that you just gave us there. To have cold feet. Esto es echarse para atrás. I think we looked at this one in the wedding episode. Well, I was very lucky to attend his wedding. And it was crazy, man. Boba Fett was there in full effect. And it was tons of fun. Juan Solo, if you're listening, and I'm sure you are because I sent you the links, thanks for a really memorable wedding. I've been to many in my day, but this one was truly out of this world. Fuera de este mundo, de otra galaxia. Okay, all right, it wasn't that funny. Well, let's kick off talking about Boba Fett, because this seems to be one of the favorite characters of many, many people around the world. My favorite is definitely Darth Vader. Why? Because he scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. So I was like, cool, I like this guy. I was curious about him. Obviously, I wanted Luke and Han Solo to win. I wanted the good guys, the Jedi, to win. But Darth Vader's cool. So here's a little trivia question for you. When did Boba Fett first appear? Now, did you say in The Empire Strikes Back? If you're a hardcore fan, you'll know that that's not true. You might have said he appeared for the first time in the Star Wars Holiday Special, the infamous Star Wars Holiday Special in 1978. Well, no, technically that wasn't his first appearance either. I know, let me explain. His history goes back a little bit further. The first time anyone, anywhere, set eyes on this mythic character, Boba Fett, was on September 24th, 1978. And this was during the San Anselmo County Fair. There was a parade happening at this town fair, this county fair. Es muy común en los Estados Unidos. Los condados hacen como una feria cada verano. And this just so happened to be in the same town where Lucasfilm was located. So Boba Fett joined the parade. So his first appearance really was at a little parade in a town in California. Now, about Yoda, I want to talk. And this guy, wow, Yoda, talk about a wise one. He had his own speech, his own way of speaking, and he wasn't monkeying around. No estaba tonteando, but he was almost a monkey. What? What do you mean he was almost a monkey? Well, he was almost played by a monkey. Now, in the end, good taste prevailed, and they used animatronics and puppetry, and that was done by Frank Oz. Frank Oz, I know you might not know who I'm talking about, but if you listen to our episode on Sesame Street, he's the guy who did the voice of Miss Piggy and so many other characters from the Muppets, Los Teleñecos. But at first, they hired a monkey, contrataron a un mono, and the expression says, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. Y pagar peanuts es pagar muy poco. To make a long story short, they wanted to dress this monkey up as Yoda, and they wanted to put a costume on him and a mask. And you guys can find some pictures of this original Yoda online. They're floating around. And what made them decide to hire Frank Oz, a master puppeteer, and not hire a monkey? Well, one of the crew members previously worked on 2001, A Space Odyssey, the movie directed by Kubrick. And he pointed out, señaló o destacó, that the apes used in the movie, in the opening sequence, los simios, they were a pain in the neck. Eran muy pesados. So that was enough to convince the filmmakers to use a human. Okay, humans can be difficult, but at least you can reason with them. Some of them. Also, in the really early stages of The Empire Strikes Back, when they were on the first draft, el primer borrador, the first draft of the script, do you know what Yoda's original name was? This is really silly, and thank God, again, that they made these changes to Yoda, because his original name was Buffy. Yeah, did anybody just think of a vampire slayer? Yeah, me too. We already mentioned Vader. I think he's definitely, as I said before, one of the baddest bad guys. And as I said, James Earl Jones did the voice. He's also the dad. If you've seen Príncipe de Zamunda, we call it Coming to America, él hace del rey. So you got to watch that movie in English and then watch Star Wars and say, aha, este es este tío. He is amazing. James Earl Jones. But he wasn't in the costume. No, not at all. The man in the costume was a British bodybuilder named David Prowse, and he was banned for life, prohibido por vida, from going to any Star Wars event. The way the story goes is David Prowse and George Lucas had a falling out, un desacuerdo. And Prowse didn't really speak well about Lucas, and he didn't like it. And really, he was really pissed off because when they revealed Vader, you know, his face, when you see his face, it wasn't David Prowse. They used another actor, an actor named Sebastian Shaw. So technically, we could say that Darth Vader was played by 3 different people. And our Dutch and German friends, I mean, we all know that it's Luke's father. Oh no, I hope I didn't spoil it for you. Well, we all know that Luke is Vader's father. But if you're Dutch or German, you just have to know that the word Vater means padre. So I think they probably caught on earlier in the movie. And that line, the line, ¿la conocéis? Soy tu padre. What does he say? Does he say, Luke, I'm your father? Well, in the United States, people misquote that. Lo dicen mal. They say, Luke, I'm your father. When really the line is, no, I'm your father. And Luke's original name? Oh, God. Luke Starkiller. It's a bit much. Un poco demasiado. Another crowd pleaser, un favorito de todos, is Han Solo. And Han Solo, man, he is definitely a guy who is a bounty hunter. And we're going to hear from Juan Solo later how he learned what a bounty hunter is. Un recompensas o caza recompensas, I think you say in Spanish. Harrison Ford was not supposed to be reading for the part of Han Solo. In fact, he was doing George Lucas a favor, and he was reading the lines to the actors who were auditioning. So they saw dozens of actors for the role of Han Solo, including Kurt Russell. And Harrison Ford was there in the auditions, in los casting. Well, he was reading the other parts. He was there just prompting the actors, doing a favor. But then when George Lucas couldn't really find the guy, he said, wait a second, Harrison, you do it pretty well. I like your delivery of the lines. And Harrison Ford was already starting to be known as an actor. He was in the movie American Graffiti, which is a classic movie as well. But I think this was his catapult to fame. And then he went on to be Indiana Jones. Again, another John Williams movie. Dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. If you're not doing it with me, you're dead inside. John Williams, man, what a genius. Next up, we're going to look at Han Solo's sidekick, Chewbacca, or Chewie, who is a Wookiee. And this is pretty interesting because this guy who played the Wookiee, his name is Peter Mayhew. I imagine you Star Wars geeks will know that. Well, he was almost shot at. What? ¿Le dispararon? Well, yeah, you know the scenes that they did in the woods, in El Bosque? Well, those were filmed in the redwood forests of California in the Return of the Jedi movie. And, well, a lot of people there hunt bear, cazan osos. So they saw this big creature, this big hairy creature, and they would want to shoot at him. So they had to send Chewbacca, Peter Mayhew, dressed as Chewbacca, into the woods with chaperones. Chaperones. They were bodyguards who were wearing bright vests so that hunters wouldn't shoot at him and mistake him for a bear. I mean, talk about suffering for your art. I can't even bear to think about it. Okay, that wasn't that funny. Also, Chewbacca's sound. Let me try. I don't think I can do it. Okay, that was really bad. Well, the sound designer, a guy named Bert, that's his last name, he ended up mixing together the howls, howl, and the roars, rawr, of a bunch of different creatures. He used a badger, a lion, a seal, and a walrus, and he mixed all those sounds together to create Chewbacca's growl. I don't know. I think that's just something to chew on. To chew on, Chewbacca. Algo que contemplar. Okay, I'll stop with the bad jokes, guys. We couldn't talk about Star Wars without talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by the great Sir Alec Guinness, who was used to doing Shakespearean roles at the moment. At that time, he was on the Shakespearean circuit. So it is said that he did not like it. In fact, he loathed working on Star Wars. To loathe, detestar. And in a letter to friends, he said, and I quote, this is about Star Wars, "New rubbish dialogue reaches me every other day on wages of pink paper, and none of it makes my character clear or even bearable." Wow, he really didn't like Star Wars. Well, I couldn't tell. No se notaba. Also, we got Jabba the Hutt. Let's do a little trivia question again here. How many puppeteers do you think it took to move this huge puppet, Jabba the Hutt? How many did you say? 3, 4, 7. 7. That's right. It was controlled by 3 puppeteers who were inside, one controlling the right arm and jaw, mandibula. Another handled the left hand and jaw, and the tongue and head movements. And both of them moved the body. And the third person was in the tail. And then outside, there were always 1 or 2 people on radio controllers, using these radio controllers to move the eyes. And then there was another guy who was under the stage blowing smoke up that would come out of his lungs. Oh my God, I had no idea how elaborate this puppet was. Obviously, we've got to talk about the droids. We've got C-3PO. We've got R2-D2, which I think are also classic characters. And right now, we're going to hear from my good buddy, Germain Vega. He's originally from Venezuela. He's lived in Spain for so long, but now he's living over in the UK, in London town, mate. And he was working at the studios, at Pinewood Studios, when they were filming one of the Star Wars movies. And he's going to tell us all about that. He's also going to tell us about how Arturito is R2-D2 in Latin America. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from my great friend, my brother from another mother, Germain.
Hi, this is Germain from London, straight from West London. Well, I was born in Venezuela, but then I spent a decade, so 10 years in living in between Madrid and Barcelona, Valencia and the Canary Islands. And that's how I met one of my best friends, Alberto Alonso, and actually one of my best English teachers, definitely the best teacher I ever had. And we became friends as well. So now we're talking about Star Wars. Star Wars is one of my favorite movies of all time, the saga. But that stars from probably from my childhood. But I had not quite recent, but an experience a few years ago where I ended up in Pinewood Studios. That's in West London, in Uxbridge. And a few years ago, a decade, nearly 10 years ago, when I arrived here to London, I was working in the catering industry to pay for my studies and everything. And long story short, I ended up in the studios doing some catering work, like moving stuff around and every now and then cooking, helping the kitchen staff to make sandwiches or anything. And I remember one of the ladies from production came and said, like, "Oh, would you mind to make a cream cheese and salmon sandwich for Carrie Fisher?" I was like, "What? Carrie Fisher?" That's when I realized, like, where I was, like, how big was the thing that was involved. I think it was The Phantom Menace, or I forget what movie it was, but it was Carrie Fisher was still, alive, and she was in that episode. That was around 2013, 2012, 13, and that movie was released on 2015. Yeah, that's correct. And so I was walking around the studios, and I didn't see any famous actor, but I saw like stormtroopers around, the rebels were walking around, walkies, and an ex is fighter, a star fighter, parked outside one of the studios. So it was like a mind blower for me being such a fan. But my love for Star Wars goes way, way back. When I was like 7-year-old, started watching movies on VHS. I saw New Hope. I watched New Hope and everything. And then my older brother, which is, now living in the US, and I remember he had an R2D2, but in Latin America, we call it Arturito. And what happened was that accidentally I broke his R2D2, and he was upset, for nearly for life with me, like, because I did that. And what happened is that when we were living in South America, in Caracas, we moved from Caracas to Valencia, and then in Valencia we met a really nice, we met really good friends, and one of the best friends we had was the Jarque family. And what happened is that the older brother of the Jarque brothers, he was called Arturo. So what a great name, Arturo and Arturito. But they had a massive collection. They were my neighbors, and they had a massive collection of the action figures of the Star Wars. They had hundreds of action figures, like all the bases, the walkies. They had everything, and we happened to be best friends. So I'll go every now and then to play with the figures and stay with them. But then sadly, the older brother of this family, he passed away in a car crash, and it was Arturo. So he was my best friend's, my older brother, best friends, and he also was one of the best friends of the family. So there is an attachment, with me and this movie, and memories from the past, from the childhood, and also I've been doing, a lot of research in the last few years, about how Lucas and the Japanese, like how the samurai was influenced the Star Wars movies and everything. And I happened to travel to Japan, and I found even, samurai, Star Wars, samurai inspired figures and everything. And I loved it. So Star Wars, even in the past, and more in the past, but now the present and the future, has been always a great saga, and we love it. And I'm still watching, the new, series that have been released in Disney Channel, and I'm loving it. So may the force with you guys, and I hope you like my podcast. And well, it's Alberto's podcast, absolutely, but my little contribution to his podcast. And all the love from United Kingdom and London. All the best. Bye.
Wow, Germain, that was very heartfelt, desde el corazón. To him, it even had a special meaning because it reminded him of playing and sharing and his neighbors and his childhood. And I think that's something that everybody has shared. Doesn't matter what country they're from. It reminds them of their youth, of their childhood, of that belief that anything is possible. I'm not an envious guy, but Germain, you made something for Princess Leia, for Carrie Fisher. Hats off to you, buddy. I don't have a better story than that one. Another thing we have to talk about is CGI versus models. Well, obviously, in the early Star Wars movies, they didn't have CGI, computer-generated imagery. Vamos, que es lo que se ve en todas las películas hoy. All you see is CGI. Well, these movies were made using models, so you needed a lot of artistry. I'm not saying it doesn't take artists to design this stuff on a computer, but I'm a little bit CGI'd out. Estoy hasta arriba del CGI. It happened to me with the movie Top Gun. There wasn't a lot of CGI. All the cockpit scenes en la cabina were filmed with cameras, and you could tell, se nota. So these movies have held up over time. I mean, they literally used all the creativity they had to make the impossible possible. Hey, it sounds like what Luke Skywalker did too. And the Jedis. I guess that's another reason people didn't like the spin-offs or the second trilogy. But my friend Alvaro, who is originally from Spain but has lived in Singapore, he's lived in many different places, he is a huge fan. Now, he tells us a really funny story of how he saw The Empire Strikes Back, but he saw it out of order. So he's like, I don't get it. But that didn't stop him from falling in love with this saga. Let's hear from my brother from another mother, Alvaro Quesada.
When I was a kid back in the 90s, I remember that my access to media and movies was through my father. And he was the one that supplied at home lots of VHS. And sometimes what he did is he rented some movies and then he copied them at home. So we watched the movies one over and over and over again. The thing with the Star Wars is that my father, he only provided a copy of episode 5. So the original trilogy is episodes 4, 5, and 6. And even if episode 4 starts already with a background story that you don't know, you can still guess the background. But if you start only on episode 5, it's a movie that it feels like it already started, but you don't know anything about it. And then when it seems that it's about to end, you really don't see the ending. So I've watched that movie maybe like 6 times, 7 times, only episode 5. And I was like, yeah, this is cool, but I guess that the previous movies and the later movies will be better. But I never know that there was all movies. Thankfully, at some point, I grew up and I found out that actually there's 2 more movies. And that in the late 90s, George Lucas, he gave us the original, the prequel trilogy, which is episodes 1, 2, and 3. So that was the best excuse for me to brush up all my Star Wars knowledge with the original trilogy and the movies, because they did this re-screening, and then with the prequel trilogies. So I can say that I was a late bloomer in that sense of Star Wars, but hey, Star Wars is a fantastic universe that George Lucas created, and personally, I'm really enjoying all the new series that they're doing: The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, and now Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's a really good one. So yeah, late bloomer, but I love Star Wars.
See, not everybody hates the spin-offs. Some people like those new movies. And I really can't say I like them or dislike them because I haven't seen them. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I'm not into the extended universe. And we're going to wrap up today hearing from my friend Juan Solo, who has even won Star Wars competitions. We've heard from him twice today, but today he's going to tell us a little bit about his feats, sus hazañas, and some of the vocabulary he learned from watching and reading Star Wars in English. Words like scoundrel, smuggler, scruffy. Well, let's hear from Juan Solo.
And you can learn a lot of interesting vocabulary watching these movies. Bounty hunter, scoundrel, smuggler, Death Star. I was going to say Jedi, but you don't need the word Jedi in your ordinary life, I think. By the way, when Star Wars was released in Spain, everybody said Jedi. Then we learned it's Jedi. Lightsaber, Star Destroyer, energy shield, deflector shield. And I remember Princess Leia in The Empire Strikes Back, in Hoth, the frozen planet. Princess Leia called Han Solo scruffy-looking nerf herder. Scruffy-looking nerf herder, which is great. I had no idea what it meant. I looked it up and it was really original. And by the way, I am the current champion of the Star Wars customizable card game, the Decipher Star Wars customizable card game. I'm the current champion. I won the championship in Zaragoza in the year 2001, and that was the final tournament, so I'm the current champion. No defeated. So, as you can see, I'm a complete geek. I want to say goodbye. Well, no, not goodbye. May the Force be with you, Alberto, and with all your listeners.
Awesome. It can even be an English learning tool. Well, I want to thank you guys for being here. I want to thank all my friends who participated as well. And may the Force be with you. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of FYI.